being here. And we do have a quorum. Our quorum, Jennifer, is 4 of the 6. So we always have to have 4 to actually conduct business past motions. And we've been doing great for the last 2 or 3 years, no problem.
Yep.
The first item on the approval of the agenda is next. Now, I sent all of you yesterday a revised agenda. You had received an agenda in your packet from Katie, and 4 items have been added. In case you haven't seen that, I'll quickly note that under old business, I'm asking that we add a review of our operational status and a consideration of some possible adjustments. Katie will talk about those. Under new business, consider a recommendation to close the main library for carpet installation. Also, under new business, consider adding Juneteenth to our policy, library hours and services, which talks about the holidays that we close for. And also under new business, consider adding to the fines and fees policy language regarding availability of paying with a credit card. Are there any other corrections or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, if there's no objection, the agenda will stand as approved. So hearing no objection, the agenda is accepted, and we'll move now to the chairman's report / comments / announcements. And first and foremost, a formal introduction of our new trustee, Jennifer Porter, who raised her hand, I guess, in the fall, saying she was interested in joining the board. And sure enough, an opening developed, and she was very quickly considered by the Board of Supervisors and approved. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And what I would like to do is have you begin, and then have the rest of us all share just a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, about ourselves, our families, our careers, our interests, our hobbies, our pastimes, etc. Anything you care to add. So Jennifer, tell us about Jennifer.
Okay. Well, I'm Jennifer, and my career for the past 15 years, I've been a school librarian. I've done elementary through high school. We moved to Orange about a little over a year ago, and then pretty quickly went into quarantine. But right now I am working at the Orange County High School. I got the job right before we went into quarantine. I interviewed and was offered the position, and then all that happened. So, and before we moved here, we were just in Louisa. And so I've been at that high school for several years. And before that, I was in their elementary schools there. So, when we moved down from Northern Virginia to there. So that's that. And I have 2 children, and they're both at Orange Elementary School now. One's in 1st grade and one's in 4th grade. So they are happy that they got to go back to school all week this week. So, but I think we're all ready for the weekend because it's been a lot. I don't know. I love to read, obviously, and be outside. And we live on a couple acres. That's why part of what we were looking for when we moved out here. So so we've got chickens and garden and all the things that we want. So
Can you give us a good price on eggs?
we don't charge first. We don't have that many.
When we talked on the phone, you told me about your husband. Why don't you talk a little bit about him?
Yes. So he's what brought us.
There's apparently a problem.
He works at the National Ground Intelligence Center in Charlottesville. And so I'm originally from Northern Virginia, and that's where we met. But we were happy to move out of there, which with his specialty, he works in intelligence with the Army. There aren't many places to go, but Charlottesville is one of those places. So that's what brought us to the area and how we found it. And we really enjoy it. So
great. I want to point out that Jennifer attended John Fry. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Jennifer attended Robinson High School in Fairfax County.
All right.
Yes.
I had told Jennifer on the phone that both of my kids graduated from West Springfield. And get this, Jennifer, John
What's that?
Fry attended West Springfield and played basketball.
Oh,
there.
wow. Very cool. Rivals.
Yeah, I'm a Spartan. I'm a Spartan.
Yeah.
And John, your wife went to West Springfield too, right?
She went to West Springfield and actually graduated from Woodson, W.T. Woodson.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Another
All right.
rival.
Well,
And that's just
Thank
because she married me.
does anybody have any questions for Jennifer? Anything you're curious about? Jennifer, there are.
Can't wait to meet you face to face, Evan.
Yes, me too.
It's too bad you can't see John. It's something to behold.
That was my popular demand.
Jennifer, there's another staff person at the high school library, right?
There is.
That right?
Yes.
Is she also a librarian?
She is. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Jennifer Kohler.
Okay, great. Two Jennifers.
Yep.
How about that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The reading specialist is with us too, and she's Jennifer too. So.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, I'll go next. And actually, I thought having us all talk a little bit about ourselves would not only be useful for Jennifer, but it would be useful for each other because it's been a while since we've shared with each other a bit about our background. So maybe this will be a bit of a refresher. I'm not necessarily offering a model here, but I'll note that I'm married. My wife, Mary Ann, and I live here at Lake of the Woods. We've been here full time since 2013, having moved down from Fairfax County, Springfield. We have two children, both of whom live in Northern Virginia. My daughter is a special education teacher in the Fairfax County system. And my son and his wife, who live in Leesburg, both work in the corporate world from home. And they have two little grandsons, which we care for 1 week a month to give them a break. So that's been a lot of fun and a real challenge. At any rate, I had a 35-year full-time career in public service. I was a high school teacher in Ohio for 11 years, and then moved to the DC area and had a 24-year career with the Central Intelligence Agency doing a variety of things. After I retired from that in 2007, I did work part-time as a contractor for a few years, but I've been fully retired since 2011, and I love it. We play a lot of bridge here, very active in the bridge groups, and I spend a fair amount of my time each day running a little business. I sell on Amazon and eBay sports memorabilia and sports trading cards, and business has been very good during the pandemic. I'm somewhat sorry to say, but it is what it is. So let's go on down the line by seniority, and actually, let me note that Joan McClung, who could not be with us today, is the longest serving member of our library board and has also served many years as our chairperson. She's now our vice chairperson, and hopefully you'll get to meet her next month. So John, why don't you talk a little bit about you and yours and your life?
Oh, sure. Born in Pennsylvania, stopped over in Hawaii, but I've been a Virginian since the early 60s. Grew up there in Northern Virginia, as we were just talking about. I've been a long-term resident of Orange, probably right after college in '76 is when I first moved here. My parents had a place at Lake of the Woods. I used to come down in the summers when I was in high school. And I got a place. First place we lived in Orange was Lake of the Woods. I went to West Virginia University, graduated in Forest Resources Management, and somehow parlayed that into a 40-year career in the Department of the Navy in the comptroller's office. So go figure. I have two boys, and they're in their late 30s now. Both graduated from and went through schools in Orange. They were born up in Fairfax Hospital, but have been Orange residents their whole lives. I have now, they're both married. both recently married, and both recently have we have our first granddaughters, and that's Steely, and that's Vivian. And I am fortunate. My oldest son is Greg. My youngest son is Patrick. The oldest son, I married a woman who I'm lucky to say I have also 11-year-old grandson. So that's wonderful. I did retire in 2015, enjoying every minute of it. My passions probably are, I would say, reading and music. And I don't get to do enough of the one. I'm getting a whole heck of a. I'll tell you, one thing a 2-hour commute's good for is reading. So I did that for 40 years. That I got a lot of reading done. So anyway, this is a great addition. Nice to meet you, and can't wait to see you personally, all of you. I miss you.
Tina, how about you?
Hi, Jennifer, and welcome to our board community here. We've gotten to know each other via Dave's conduit actions, and we're very glad to have you. I've been a board member for maybe 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And I'm also retired from the cooperative extension system. I worked in Virginia Cooperative Extension, and previously had started my career with Florida Cooperative Extension, where I lived for 20 years in South Florida. And I originally from Ohio, now in Virginia. And I live in the Gordonsville area. 2 children, 4 grandchildren. Actually, I'm in West Virginia right now at my daughter's house, down in our suite here in the basement.
Nice.
So they're about 4.5 hours away. So we do get to see them. My other daughter just moved to Texas from California, from Hawaii. She's married to a Navy man. So anyways, I do want to say I'm the proud recipient now, as of Tuesday, of the Orange County Broadband Initiative. We just got Wi-Fi Tuesday.
Wow.
Woo! We were one of
All
the
right.
first neighborhoods to get
All right.
to have access, because we're real close to the trunk line on Route 33 here in Gordonsville. So our neighborhood, yeah, so that's very exciting. Now we have high speed, even though I'm not home to enjoy it right now. But
Yeah.
my interests are reading. I'm also a volunteer master naturalist, so I do a lot of work out in the community, and most recently pulled wineberry from Montpelier, from the big woods at Montpelier. Wineberry is an invasive berry that crowds out natives, and there's troops of us master naturalists, doing citizenship work and service work and yanking out that wineberry. So I get involved with lots of outdoor stuff, and yeah, so very glad you're here. And again, hopefully our next meeting can be in person. So
I want to note, Tina mentioned she's from Ohio, been gone a long time. She still has the accent. I know that accent from living in Ohio for many years.
yes, and I drink pop instead of soda.
Yeah. She has other issues too, but we'll skip those for now. Beth, how about you?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm Beth Wilbanks. We moved up here from Texas about 14 years ago for no real reason. It wasn't family or anything, or jobs. It was mainly get rid of the heat. So we live on a farm close to the high school. I have a son over there that's a struggling sophomore who was very happy to go back to school.
Oh, good.
But it's been hard for him with all the, I guess like all of them, but he was glad to be back at school. I have another daughter that's a senior at the University of Georgia, and another daughter that's a school teacher, chemistry and environmental sciences at Christ Church School. So she's teaching high school up there. And my husband was a veterinarian, so now he's all retired. So he just works on our cows and our cats. So we just on a farm. We're about, I guess, about 5 minutes from the high school. So
Oh, nice.
anyway, it's nice to have you. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to
Beth,
be here.
what's your son's first name?
Seth.
Seth.
So I think
Seth
he
Wilbeck.
came,
Yeah.
he came to the library, right? He would stay
He was
after.
doing that, yeah, because he
Yeah,
needed.
I
he
know
needed
him.
help, and he needed to get out of schools. I mean, out of the house. So he went. He was like, "What can I do?" So yeah, the
Seriously.
counselor hooked him up so he could come into the library and work, and it was helpful for him.
Yes,
Different-
yes. Well, good. Not many
So-
kids took advantage of that, but we were happy that he was there.
Well, thank you, thank you.
So you can help protect him, Jennifer, there at the high school.
I don't think he needs it. He's got lots of friends.
Okay, Katie, tell us about yourself.
I am originally from Illinois and went to college and graduate school at Northern Illinois University, and then I moved to Texas to go to library school at University of Texas in Austin, and we spent about 8 or 9 years down there, and then moved to Virginia for my husband's job, which he promptly quit 6 weeks later. And he and I started jobs the same week. I started working here and he started working for a company which has since closed and laid him off right before COVID started.
Oh, no.
He was a CIO for an e-commerce firm. We kind of have the same hobbies. We do a lot of stuff together. We both really like going to live music events. We both like to read. We both like to listen to audiobooks. We both like to go wine tasting. And we both like to cook. So,
Fun.
and we are fur parents of one kitty named Gibson. No kids.
All right.
Great.
Anything else, Katie?
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
Eddie, you're Northern Illinois University. Huh? I went to Bradley for a couple years. So
Oh yeah, I know where that is.
yeah, I used to hitch up to Northern Illinois quite a bit.
Yep.
Well, hopefully, once we get to a point where we're all comfortable in each other's physical company, we can do what we had been doing before COVID, which is once in a while getting together for lunch. We might actually think of some other ways of getting together, maybe after hours, especially given that Katie works and Jennifer works, and we all have things that keep us busy during the day. But I do want to try to continue to get together just on a social basis once in a while and get to know each other even better. Okay. I want to note, as Jennifer is aware, the position she filled was created by the unfortunate death of Don Lundry, who had been fairly ill for some time. One of the, and the reason I bring that up is because Don was an avid book buyer / collector. And the more I've learned since he passed away and in talking to his daughter and in seeing a photo or two of his house after the family entered, he was collecting books at a furious pace to the point where he was just having to stack them on the floor. He had apparently not enough shelf space. At any rate, he had quite a large book collection, some of which were signed by noted science fiction authors, for example. And the family made those available to our friends groups, and we gave the wilderness group first crack. And indeed, the wilderness group, the friends group here, hauled away several boxes of books, as well as our head librarian at the wilderness branch, Michelle, having taken, I believe, a couple of boxes as well. So we did get some of the books and much too many, thousands and thousands of books, much more than either the library itself or the Friends group can handle. But I just wanted to note that kind of a fitting conclusion, I think, to Don's service with us. I also wanted to note that today, the latest edition of OC Insights came out. And once again, there's a very nice article about the library. Did you compose that, Katie?
Michelle Beamer did, because that happened when I was out for my dad's illness and eventual death.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring that back up. It's a very nice article, and it's not about anything specific. It's about what we offer, how people can get to those things. Talks about our Wi-Fi capabilities, including in the parking lot. I thought it was very well done, very well written. There's a nice photo. So I encourage you all to go to the Orange County website. If you don't have a subscription to that, get one. At least take a look at this latest issue with the library article in it. So please pass, Katie, pass to Michelle our thanks for penning that article. That's good PR. It was very, very nicely done, I thought. Okay, we're going to move now to approval of the minutes. Now, these are the minutes of a regular meeting, our February meeting, but which we didn't hold until March because of various delays, postponements. And the minutes remain as they were when they were sent to you in the packet. Hopefully you've read them. And so if there is no objection, we will approve the minutes as presented. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. I also want to point out, in part for Jennifer's benefit, but maybe the benefit of all, that the process for getting the minutes into the packet starts with Beth's drafting the minutes. She's our secretary, Jennifer. And then she sends them to me. I make some changes, send them back to Beth. Beth sends them to Katie, so Katie can see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. Then they go back to Beth, and then Beth sends them out to the board. Now, when Beth sends them out to the board, it's not just, here they are, FYI. It's also an opportunity for the board members to see if there's anything that needs to be changed, if there's anything that's inaccurate. If that's the case, you get back to Beth, and then she makes those changes, and that's then what goes into the packet, such as you have today. And by the way, Jennifer, as we move along today, if you have any questions about our procedures, processes, anything at all, just stop and ask, okay? Because we're very informal, but I think you're getting that impression. Okay, now we're going to move to Katie's primary portion of the agenda, which is the financial reports and the librarians report. Take it away, Orange.
Okay. This is the time of year that we get real busy trying to expend all of the funds, since they are, for the most part, use it or lose it. So since these reports were printed, we have expended a great deal of money. I personally spent $20,000 the first 3 days of this week. So it's been real busy. I sent a lot of book orders from Arizona as well. So at this point, that's more or less what we're trying to do. COVID definitely did affect our financial needs some, both in terms of that we got extra money that we didn't know we were going to get. And we had things that we just didn't do, like going to conferences, because they didn't happen. And the virtual ones were much cheaper than getting on a plane and flying somewhere to go. So we're going to we've moved some of those funds to other categories to spend them. And there's a few more of them left that we're going to need to move. We also did not use as much of some of the office supplies as we normally would. because we weren't as busy, but we used more of other things like nitrile exam gloves, which is not something we used to buy, and Clorox and whatever, Oxivir TB disinfectant. But overall, the main chunk, I think, of funds that we have to still do are in the programming side. Our youth services librarian, Michelle Purcell, has not expended very much of her funds. Part of that is because our summer reading program goes across our fiscal years, since our fiscal ends June 30. The part of the summer reading that we do in June is paid out of that year. And then the part of the summer reading that's in July and August is in a different fiscal year. So we didn't spend as much in July and August of 20 because of doing virtual programs and just not really wanting to wholesale commit to spending a lot for those, because what we were seeing was that kids seemed to have some fairly serious Zoom fatigue and really didn't want to tune into yet more stuff on a screen. We are going to do the program virtually again this summer, just because the vaccinations haven't really reached the age group that the program is targeted for yet. And in fact, they're not even approved by the CDC for use in those age groups. I think what we will probably end up doing there is, working on some of the stocking up basic supplies, craft supplies and things like that that can be used in the future. And doing our best to plan going forward. For adult programs, we have actually basically taken care of the supplies for the first 3 or 4 months of next fiscal year. So.
Katie, I have a question regarding the staff in-service budget. That because people didn't go to in-person conferences, can any of that be used for like online, courses that you have to pay for, but you do them virtually, or?
It could be. So far, nobody has asked to sign up for one. We did attend some virtual conferences. Several of us attended Association of Small and Rural Libraries online. Several of us attended the TLC user conference online. Terry is attending ALA online.
Okay.
So anybody who asked to go to anything we used the money for that, but it was just so much less expensive.
Yeah, of course.
And that's something we couldn't have possibly known when preparing the budget, that
Sure.
we wouldn't be able to go anywhere. A lot of the online stuff got made free too. I mean, we were able to go to a lot of web training that was free.
Mm-hmm. Good.
There were things we would have probably had to due for in other years that they said, oh, well, due to COVID, we're going to give this to you for free.
Super.
Which has been nice. I feel like we're in a pretty good place. I think we'll be able to get things down pretty significantly. We are going to have to file for a waiver for state aid for last year, because the county paid for a lot of the part-time salaries from March through June of 20 using CARES Act money. So it was paid out of a central admin line item on the county's budget rather than from the library's budget. So they have already checked in and informed me we are in violation of the state aid rules. and asked me for my explanation, which I provided, and they said they did not foresee there being any difficulty with this. But just so you're informed that that is happening in the background. We may have a similar issue this fiscal year for the same reason.
Would you repeat that last thing? I didn't quite get that. A similar problem with,
We may have it again this fiscal year.
oh, okay, same thing.
We didn't have as much COVID expenses since all the staff were working. You know, we didn't have staff at home being paid not to work during this fiscal year. But we did have people at home that we paid not to work when they were quarantining for COVID. And there was a fair amount of that between the 3 libraries. And also the county paid CARES Act money for staff hours to get vaccinated, or if they had to stay home because they were sick after they got vaccinated. So there will be some salary funds that will be not in our budget, but were expended on our behalf again this year.
Okay.
It's
Any other questions for Katie about things financial? Or
I
that you want to
forgot
add,
to
Katie?
explain that for Jennifer. This probably, I don't know if this affects you guys in the schools too. For state aid to public libraries, there is a clause in the actual state law that says you have to spend as much local money this year as you spent last year.
Okay.
And it can be a real challenge sometimes, even if the money is in the budget, because maybe you had a full-time person that quit and it took 5 months to fill their job.
Right.
So sometimes it's a challenge to try to accomplish that.
Right.
Especially when the budget is extremely flat from one year to the next, and there's not much allowance for anything to go unspent. We are not allowed to recapture salary money. The county won't let me spend it on something else. So if salary money gets not spent, it causes problems.
Okay.
Other things like, you know, there's extra money in advertising because we didn't have to hire anyone and didn't use it. I can move that and repurpose it, but I cannot do so with salaries, and it is fairly frowned upon to do it with utilities too.
Okay.
We do our best.
Of course, we have your printed library report, and understanding that later we're going to talk about the carpet project. Anything else you want to add under that heading, Katie, or that anyone wants to ask about?
I want to thank you for this semi-annual report. This was really a nice, tidy, really easy, great summary on various projects.
Yeah.
It was
Good PR.
yeah. And you know, I asked for a you know, attachment, which I'll share this with the Friends group in Gordonsville, because I think it's great thumbnail of you know, stuff going on. So thank you for doing that.
Good. We send something to the county board a couple of times a year, and this year we had fewer photos and things than usual because it was just not a normal year.
It's still a good mini catalog, if you will, of some of the more notable things that we're doing, new initiatives included.
Sure. I just didn't really want to go take a picture of the access point in the parking lot. But
Okay.
Well, I will say
of the cars in the parking lot using the access point.
those make and take projects in lieu of, you know, physical programming have been extremely popular.
Yes, they have.
So you know, that's like a great, you know, adjustment, I think, that the library's made to engage people and, you know, keep some new ideas in front of them and get them, you know, into the space.
Yep, all of that. And we are planning to continue those through the next fiscal year, just probably one a month and not two.
Mhm.
We'll do two a month until we can phase in the in-person, and then it'll go to one in person and one take home.
That's great.
Probably in the fall. Somewhat depends on, vaccination stuff.
Right. Right.
One of the things I've noticed is, despite the way the pandemic changed aspects of our lifestyles, changed some of the activities we routinely pursued, going back to the pre-pandemic mode makes me realize in certain situations that the adaptations in certain ways were more efficient and easier than the way we did business beforehand. An example, and I won't belabor this, is we play a lot of bridge, as I noted earlier. Well, we continued to play a lot of bridge during the pandemic on an online platform. We were playing with people literally all over the country, friends that played bridge, and very efficient process. We had our first in-person bridge games last week when we were in Ocean City because we had friends that were over there as well, and it was a little weird. We ran into the old difficulties you run in when you're playing in-person bridge with whose deal is it? You reneged, all kinds of things. The online seems to be. We talked about maybe we should just play in person, but each have a device in front of us and use that instead of a deck of cards. Things like it. My wife and I have noticed some other things too, where maybe it wasn't so bad doing things that way. Just an observation. It'll all be in my book, by the way.
I think
I'm
library
dying.
behavior will change permanently
I
too.
haven't been able to play music with my normal groups forever. It's killing me.
So, John, is the chorale talking about getting back together?
Well, they continued to sing. They had virtual holiday concert. They're doing the same here in the spring. So everybody, if you get a chance, Culpeper, the Blue Ridge Chorale, it's an excellent group. I sent in my registration, but I'm going to wait. I just got my second shot, and I'm going to join them next season.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
So we'll move on now, I suppose, to old business. Somebody want to say something? The first item is the FY 2022 budget update, and that's the budget for the coming year, beginning July 1st of this year. Katie, what did you want to share regarding that?
I don't have anything. I have not been given a draft of that yet.
Okay.
The budget hearing happened, so.
Right. I don't think the Board of Supervisors has yet approved it. I haven't seen an agenda yet that had included approval, just the hearing. Yeah.
Right. Usually they do it the meeting after the hearing, unless the school budget hasn't been submitted, because that's such a huge, it's 51% of the county budget. So if it hasn't been approved by the school board yet, the county can't do their budget.
Right. And Jennifer, the library system represents 1% of the county budget. So we feel you're getting more than your fair share.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work on that later. Okay, well, the new item under old business is reviewing our operational status and consider possible adjustments. We reopened. That seems to be going along fine based on my conversations and email exchanges with Katie. The staff seems to be feeling pretty good about the whole thing. I did want to note, without going into too much detail, that, as you know, I follow the virus and vaccine statistics for the county, and one of the things we paid special attention to is the percentage of people who get tested, who test positive, especially the PCR test, which is considered the most reliable test. And that number is actually up. That percentage is, today it was 7.8% on average for the last week. Whereas a month ago, it was, hang on, 5.2%. So it's up. But I would assume fewer people are getting tested. So I'm not sure what that really means, but it's still a bit of concern that that percentage is up. 2 months ago, the number was 7.6. So it went from 7.6 to 5.2 to 7.8. I'll also note that my pages are getting out of order here. About 21% of Orange County residents have are fully vaccinated. They are fully vaccinated, 21%, which I guess is pretty good, but it also suggests we have a long way to go. And that's 21% of the known population, some of whom aren't going to get it. And it's going to be interesting down the road, months from now, I suppose, to see how many people just don't want to get vaccinated, or for medical reasons can't, I suppose. And I'll also note that in terms of one of the things I've been tracking is the daily number for the number of cases that have come up in the county in the past week. And that number hasn't changed much over the last few weeks, really. Today, as of yesterday, there were 27 new cases in the county in the last week. And that number has been in the 20s and 30s since the end of March. And before that, it was higher. It was higher. So it has come down, but it's not coming down anymore, is the point that I'm trying to make. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's still ample reason for caution, ample reason for concern. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, Katie, what do you have in mind in terms of possible additional changes in our operational approach?
Two things have been issued since we last met. Well, I guess VDH guidelines were right before we met last. CDC has now released an updated report on surface transmission, which indicates that it is very, very unlikely to be transmitted that way. So we were considering making changes to the quarantine and our cleaning protocols, maybe not immediately, but maybe effective June 1st, which is before our next meeting, to either eliminate the quarantine or go from 2 days to 1 day. Systems are starting to get rid of the quarantine, but it's still, most systems are still doing it. So
we're at 3 days, right?
We're at 2 days now, 48 hours. Yeah.
Right.
VDH recommended 24, and we're doing 48 just to not have to be too fine.
And VDH has not embraced the CDC guidelines yet. Is that what you said?
No, they have not. One of my counterparts in another county called and talked to their local Department of Labor and Industry office. The DOLI are the ones that put together that really onerous temporary emergency standard that we've all had to do for the cleaning and things. It is still in effect, and they said, their contact said they did not think that standard would be modified until the governor modified the executive order, which they felt probably wouldn't happen until midsummer. So we may need to maintain the cleaning at its current rate until that occurs, since the county is obligated to follow what is in their written plan.
Right.
The only reason I'm really harping on the cleaning is that we changed our hours to allow staff a half an hour at the end of the day to do this intensive cleaning. And if we don't need to do the intensive cleaning anymore, then the hours will shift.
But it
basically.
doesn't sound like you really have a choice at this point in time.
No, and I don't know when I don't know when that's going to move.
But the quarantine window, that is a choice. That
Is a
each-
choice.
Okay.
There is
Okay.
no mandate on that. So that we
So-
can change.
So it
the-
seems like there's nothing you can do about the cleaning protocol at this point. So,
No, we had thought woohoo, but then we were like, oh no, Department of Labor, we can't do it. Well, the staff doesn't love handling the chemicals. I'll be honest. Nobody
No,
is
of
real
course
thrilled
not.
about it. They're doing it. They're doing a good job.
well, I would say that if the cleaning protocol cannot change, then the hours can't change because, they're not compatible. They need time to clean.
Yeah, the only question
Have
is,
people complained about it? About the half hour? It's like a half hour
No.
on either, on the back end of the day.
no, it's been very, very slow in the evenings as a general rule. Usually when it starts to stay light later, people will stay later and be out later.
Mhm.
So, to some extent that is somewhat seasonal. In the winter, nights are usually very, very slow.
Right.
But we do have the state aid rule that we have to be open so many night hours. And the reason that our hours are set at what they normally were is to meet the minimum requirement for the state. The state has said they would, kind of give people a buy on that because of COVID, but that is a time sensitive thing. And at some point we do have to put them back.
Well,
Whether
you've got,
we-
two state agencies that are, at odds with each other. So what are you going to do? You're caught in the middle.
And I think I can reasonably say to the state library, as long as these Department of Labor standards are here, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could do a conditional type thing that says, if the standards are altered to allow for less stringent cleaning, then when that occurs, we will shift the hours, or we can just have a special meeting to vote on that at the time. It's already
What advantage to our system would it be if the quarantine was reduced from 48 to 24 hours?
Not much, truthfully.
Okay.
It moves the holds faster,
Right.
We do deliveries twice a week. So right now we don't check in any books on Tuesdays. So because that would be like the stuff that was returned on Sunday, since we're not open. So it does slow the movement of things to the branches. Not nearly as much as the 7-day quarantine did.
Oh, certainly.
So, and the
Katie,
thing with the,
Are you saying at this point on that you want to hold on eliminating the quarantine? You want to let it stay in place until maybe our June meeting, but maybe in a special meeting if we have one?
yeah, basically.
Well, and maybe the quarantine and the cleaning can both be, collapsed when
At the same
the
time.
state decides to, do whatever they're going to do policy wise, protocol wise. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I think it's
I'm sorry, Tina. Katie, you had
No,
another thing
Whoop.
you wanted us to consider in terms of the operational methodology?
Other than the meeting rooms.
Oh, the
There
meeting.
were a couple of things you noted. Yeah, there were a couple of things you had noted to me in an email. One was the quarantining. It seems like there was something else. But maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, it's
So,
possible I'm
wait,
just not remembering.
I'm sorry, is the quarantining then going to stay as it is?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
So,
to
yeah.
definitely reconsider in June.
Yeah, and just for clarification, I can see that if we needed to change, if we saw the opportunity to change the hours, and it's well before our June meeting, we might have to have a special meeting to consider that. And then we could also consider the quarantining / cleaning issue. So that takes care of old business, and now we'll move to new business. The announcement of the nominating committee. Our nominating committee is going to be Tina and John. Tina's going to be the chairperson, and Jennifer, each year we elect a new slate of officers, or a slate of officers. It's not always new, in our May meeting. So it's an annual process, and the nominating committee will be contacting each board member to see what interest they have in possibly serving as either chairperson, vice chairperson, or secretary. Those are our 3 offices. And then they'll bring a slate of proposed officers to our May meeting. I will entertain nominations from the floor. If there are some, then we'll have a vote on those offices, or that office or offices for which there is more than one candidate. Otherwise, we'll vote on the slate that's been presented. So that'll take place in May, and in the meantime, we'll all be hearing from either Tina or John about our interests. So thank you both for taking that on. It's appreciated.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about, mainly get your feelings about the prospect of beginning to meet again in person, which is certainly my preference. Yeah, doing it via Zoom, it's easier in certain ways. We don't have to drive. Yeah, but I'm a touchy-feely guy, and I really see the value of. I think John made a comment earlier in that regard. It's good to get together and be in each other's presence. I think it makes for a more meaningful meeting experience. That's my personal opinion. So that said, and yes, trying to influence you. What do you think about the idea of getting back together physically in May in the meeting room at Maine?
We don't
I'm
have a May meeting.
It's in June,
June,
Dave.
excuse
It's
me.
Oh, I
June.
meant, yeah, June. I'm
Yeah.
for it.
The election is at the June meeting. The election of officers is the June meeting. Used to be May. I was having a senior moment there. How about getting back together physically? What do you think, folks?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Jennifer, are you comfortable with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that means you'll get to see John Fry in person in June. So that'll give you
Well,
something.
there are drawbacks to everything.
That'll give you something to look forward to for our next meeting. Okay, well, that was easier than I thought it was going to be, but I think that's 2 more months. Those that are getting vaccinated probably will have been fully vaccinated by then. And I don't know that it's appropriate to ask you about that, but I suppose it might be good to bring a mask to that June meeting in case we have a member or a staff member who has not been vaccinated. Besides, we'll be in the vicinity of staff members as we enter the meeting, at least, possibly not when we leave. So I would recommend that we do that. So Katie, let's plan to have our next meeting there. Jennifer, as I think I told you, we started trying to have 1 meeting each year at one of the other libraries. And we did manage to have a meeting, I guess it was it Tina, late 2019 in Gordonsville?
August.
And then we were going to have I think our April meeting last year at Wilderness, and the pandemic hit. And as we'll discussing here shortly, there's an issue with the availability of the meeting rooms at those other libraries. So I think for now, let's have the understanding that our June meeting, it's June, will be at the main library, and we will see better than we can over Zoom how much each of us has aged over the time we've been apart.
And we'll follow whatever existing protocols exist.
I'm going to ask Katie and Tina to take the lead in the discussion on the use of the library meeting rooms. Tina had raised this issue at our last meeting about when that meeting room at Gordonsville specifically might be available, but also at Wilderness. And Katie, why don't you give us a quick rundown on the status, and then Tina jump in with your thoughts and questions, and everybody else, of course.
That's all we need to say.
I have a comment. That was a good presentation that you sent us. What's it cost for a couple storage room signs? I mean, clearly. Have a meeting.
Yeah, we because the main library shares our meeting room with a bunch of other agencies in our building, we never put furniture in our meeting room to store. So ours is all out jumbled together in the middle of the library and looks like a hot mess. But we have been having other groups using the meeting room at Maine through the pandemic, but we have not booked members of the public into it. If we book it, then we've got to clean it.
Yeah.
And that's been something we have not really wanted to do since we're already cleaning all of the main part of the library. We're not cleaning the bathrooms. We refused to do that at the start of the pandemic because we do have county custodians, and I felt very strongly that that was their job and not the library circulation assistant job. But we've pitched in on helping clean everything else. I don't feel that strongly one way or the other. I'm absolutely fine to start booking meetings here. I do feel like the branches have a lot of stuff in their rooms. Michelle at Wilderness said that if directed to do so, she will block off a portion of her room and leave some storage things there, and then try to let people use the rest of the remaining space. Their meeting room is already pretty small. On a good day, I'd say you can shoehorn 20 people in there seated. So if part of it's blocked off, it's not going to allow very large groups. She did request that we not allow any after hours access. There's no way for us to police whether groups are social distancing if we're not even there. We really don't want to police it, period. A lot of library systems have opened their meeting rooms and a lot have not. It seems to be a pretty even mix as far as what's going on around the state. The folks who haven't done it are like, we don't want to clean it. We don't want to have to go in there between every time a group changes and sanitize it. We don't want to have to count how many people are in the room. We don't want to have to kick people out if they have too many people in the room, and those things. It's definitely more difficult than it would be normally to allow usage. I think we can work with it here if we need to. Gordonsville really doesn't have anywhere for the stuff in their room to go.
Where was it before?
On the floor, so they would have to put it back out. The problem is if you put it on the floor, people will touch it and use it, and the social distancing requirement still exists. And, you know, we tried taping the furniture, we tried putting stickers on the furniture, we tried putting rope around the furniture. people still picked it up and sat on it if they could get to it, which is why we hid it in the meeting room and shut the door and locked it. You know,
Hey, leave
I
the
don't-
storage rooms. I mean, these are extraordinary situation here. I'm not for dual purposing. You're going to have to clean them if you dual purpose. I mean, you might as well have them on the floor. But I think for the time being, they need to be storage rooms.
I think you don't book meetings because none of the protocols are going to change. Okay, for sanitizing surfaces until you get the top
Yep.
down, which
Mhm.
means, and I understand your predicament, if you put the stuff out there, even if it's flipped over a chair, somebody's going to right side it and sit in it. In addition to the 48-hour hold, which, is probably obviously reduced, the space is reduced from the 7-day hold, but still you've got stuff in there for a couple days. So I would say you just hold until the policy from
Right.
above you changes. As far as Maine goes, I'm not sure about that. If you've got to go in and clean everything after the meeting, I don't know.
There are groups that are missing out because they can't hold their meetings there. Like, as the library has like a community space, is there a part of that, that we're not offering if we don't have those? Or is it just because I don't know. I don't know how I would feel either, but some groups use the community space because they don't have somewhere else to meet.
Mhm. And a lot of them,
Yeah, well, it'd be nice if we didn't have the pandemic too. But
I think a
True.
lot of groups haven't been meeting, but now as more people are getting vaccinated, they're starting to be interested in meeting again
Right.
Yeah.
in person. Same as our board here, it was like we didn't feel safe doing it, but now we have a higher percentage of folks that are vaccinated.
But you have a facility that's different than Gordonsville and different than what?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The main groups here at Maine that we haven't booked, we have a group of area women who like to come in and all quilt together. They haven't been coming. The other uses of the room are mostly still happening because they're mostly other agencies.
Sure.
So Office on Youth is doing stuff, voter registrar is doing training. Social services did some job training. All of those uses are still happening, but because they're being booked by other groups, then the onus is not on the library specifically to clean that shared space. It's on whatever agency is using it.
Right.
Well, Katie, since the CDC has come out with the fact that surface transmission is very minimal, why
Right.
can't the groups be responsible for doing the cleaning? If it doesn't really matter as far as CDC goes, why have your staff do it? Why can't the groups be responsible for cleaning, especially since it doesn't really increase, or decrease transmission if it's not cleaned properly? Give them the stuff and let them clean it.
And watch over them.
I'm a little tongue in cheek with that, but the new
Believe me, the
policy
idea did
is,
occur to me.
why not? If
part of
I
that
mean,
thing.
you're getting it cleaned like the library says, but the
Well,
quality.
you're gonna have a staff member in there watching?
No, because
I mean,
it doesn't matter. The CDC
You still got
said
the stupid
Well, you
Department of
got-
Labor.
You still
thing.
need to clean it. I mean,
It-
to make
I
sure
don't know.
it's clean.
John, go ahead. John?
No, I just don't, you still need, even if they're cleaning it, you need somebody to assure the libraries that it's being cleaned. I mean, look, yeah, this is
Basically, yeah.
small potatoes compared to all the changes that have occurred. Be patient sometimes. Somebody has to be patient sometimes.
I can say we have not had a lot of phone calls about the meeting room. I think we've had 2 or 3, but it has not definitely been any kind of like huge overwhelming thing. It's mostly been from agencies like SAFE and similar ones that want to have their employees meet with their clients in our space. They aren't really library related, mission related things. However, I do think that that definitely has community value.
Do they usually meet there?
Yeah, we do allow that as one of the civic provisions of the policy. It has to be cultural, educational, or civic use. So
Is there any precedent within the county for using any other public meeting space? I know there isn't a whole lot of other public meeting
there's just not a
spaces.
lot of options.
Okay, all right. So that's a
Sometimes
non-issue.
we will refer them to the extension office. They have that small conference room, and Office
Right.
on Youth has a small one. And if somebody's really desperate, sometimes we'll try to see if one of them can accommodate them.
Yeah.
I know like the high school used to have, like you could rent out the library or other things, but that has all been cut. You know, none of that's happening. So
Yeah.
That's worth hearing because we're not the only entity in the county that's dealing with this issue.
Right. That's what I was.
Jennifer's earlier point about having the room, the meeting rooms available as a community resource is well taken. And indeed, it's one of the better things we can do in terms of being a community resource writ large to the county. However, and at the risk of oversimplification, but I think I'm reflecting some comments from Tina and John. If we're still under guidelines,
right.
let me put it this way: the pandemic ain't over. There are
No.
still measures that need to be taken because the virus is still spreading. And I think this is pretty, Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I think I was hearing you say. Until that stops, we can't, it's difficult to make these meeting rooms available. Anybody else? Are you
I say
comfortable with that?
we put it on
With
the agenda
continuing as
again
we have been
for
doing?
talk about it in June.
Oh, we'll certainly review it again in June. But if there's no, I would suggest if there's no objection, we just agree to continue as we have been doing in terms of not making those meeting rooms any more available than we're making the main library room available to other county entities. So Katie, I think we're good to go. At least we'll review it at the June meeting. Does that sound fair?
It does. And if I start to get more requests, I will make note of that and bring that forward.
Yeah.
I do think that it will start to happen. Having just returned from spending time with my mom down in Arizona, she's in a like a 6,000 or so home, 50+ community, and they've achieved 100% vaccination in their community. And I mean, people were just feeling very free.
Oh, please, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's 100% good, but
Well, I'm going with it.
Yeah. Again, only 20% of our county population is fully vaccinated. And I shared some numbers about how we continue to get new cases every day in the county. So it's still out there.
Yep.
So, and another possibility is if I don't know that this is going to change much between now and June, but if there is an increased demand for use of the conference rooms, and if we do have a special meeting, we can consider that then as well. Okay.
It's kind of part of the whole package, and the Department of
Yeah.
Labor standards, if they change, would affect that as well.
Yeah. Okay. It's too bad, but it's the way things are. And there's only so much we can ask of our staff in terms of being custodians. Okay, we'll move now to the first of the three additional items that we added when we approved the agenda. We want to talk about, Katie is going to recommend that we close the main library for carpet installation. Katie, tell us what the story is behind that.
Well, first thing is, I'm not sure when it will be. It could end up being after the June meeting, really don't know. I had a couple carpet people in today that were measuring and bringing samples, and I asked them, kind of what would their delivery window was, and they said probably 10 weeks. I asked, how long do you think we would need to close for the installation to happen? And they said 4 or 5 days plus drying time for the adhesive. So basically a week. It could potentially be done in sections, but it might be difficult to operate with parts of the floor not accessible. I can't see really letting little kids in here if we have parts of the floor that have got glue. I think it's just better to close. The staff will not get paid to not work. Everybody will still be working. We just might send some of them to other buildings or give them other duties. We're going to need to shift a lot of things around in the building to accomplish the carpeting. And we're going to need people to take books off of a shelf here and put them somewhere else. So that shelf, especially the low picture book shelving, we've got to empty all of that off so that it can be moved and have the carpet installed beneath it and then have it put back. And basically we're going to have the county's handful of custodians that they have and our staff as labor. They're not going to hire anybody to do the moving. I talked to the public works facilities person, Mr. Daniels, and they're not planning on hiring any labor to assist with it. So that's kind of that. It would just be sort of an open TBD motion unless you want to have a special meeting right before when the carpet would happen. I feel fairly sure it will happen between now and August, but beyond that, I'm not 100% sure when.
So I think one of the things you're saying or suggesting anyway is that it would be good to have the approval of the board now for we don't know when it's going to happen, but you really need a decision before the June meeting.
Potentially, yes. Especially if we want to do a press release somewhat in advance of this happening. And because depending on what vendor and product is chosen, I have had it happen where you buy something and they say it's 6 weeks and they call you after 3 weeks and say, hey, it's here. It's
So it could happen.
It could happen.
So do we need a motion to approve closing the library upon, based on ordering, scheduling, et cetera, of the carpet installer? Do we need a motion for that? Okay,
think so.
There's my motion.
Okay. And
I second that motion.
okay, we have a motion and we have a second that we will close the library for the installation. I would like to offer a friendly amendment, Tina. If you and John don't object, I would like the motion to include that the length of the closure will be determined at the discretion of the library director.
Yes, yes.
Is
That
that
was in
okay
my
with you?
brain. It just didn't come out in my mouth.
John,
Yeah.
is that okay with you?
That makes sense.
Okay, okay. So
We'll go
And-
as short as we can.
And as timely a public notice as possible. You know, I don't know if that needs
Right,
to be in there,
right.
but
it can't hurt. Further discussion.
And
Okay,
of course,
the motion before, well, and Beth, we'll leave it to you to craft the language that conveys our intent. But essentially, the motion is to close the library for carpet installation. The length of the closure will be determined by the library director, and notice of the closure of the library will be given to the public as quickly as possible. Did I leave anything out, board members? Any further discussion? Then I'll call the question. And normally, Jennifer, in our in-person meetings, we just do aye and no. But because we're on Zoom now, and to make sure that because it may be difficult to hear a voice vote, I've been doing a roll call by seniority. So I'll start with John. Yes or no?
Yes.
Tina,
yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And I vote yes as well. So it's unanimous. Okay. Anything else before we move on, Katie, regarding the carpet installation? Other
No,
than the
that's-
fact that you wish you would go, you wish it weren't necessary.
Oh, I couldn't be more excited about this. Our carpet is very dirty. It will be lovely to have clean carpet.
Okay, then we'll move to the next new item. Consider adding Juneteenth to our policy, library hours and services. And just by way of clarification, because I had to do a little education of myself on this, Juneteenth is generally a celebration of the emancipation of the slaves in the United States.
Right.
It specifically grew from, it was first noted in Texas in June of 1865, when the Union general in charge of the operation to pacify Texas, which was the most far-flung of the southern states of the Confederacy, felt he had to say, the slaves here are free. The Emancipation Proclamation had done it, but apparently there was some resistance. And then the state acceded to his proclamation that the slaves were free. So it is a celebration of the Emancipation Proclamation, and it's a celebration of other actions, such as in Texas, which eventually made everybody free. And in reading about this, I was reminded of something I actually learned when I was in college, took a Civil War course. The Emancipation Proclamation did not free all the slaves. That's a misconception a lot of people have. It freed the slaves in the states that were in conflict with the Union, the Confederacy, the states in the Confederacy. Well, there were 4 states where slavery was still legal that didn't join the Confederacy: Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware. By the end of the war, Maryland and Missouri had outlawed slavery, but it took the 13th Amendment to end slavery in Kentucky and Delaware. And as a matter of fact, this is a little factoid I wasn't aware of. At the time of the passage of the 13th Amendment, there were still 16 slaves in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey had outlawed slavery long ago, but they had this arcane process for sort of grandfathering in the descendants of some slaves who in effect became indentured servants, such that by the time the 13th Amendment was passed, there were still officially, according to New Jersey, 16 slaves in their state. There, something to bring up at the dinner table with your family. So Juneteenth has become a fairly prominent holiday in the United States, and most notably in our case and why we're considering this, Orange County now recognizes it as a holiday. So enough mouthing by me. Katie, what else would you like to add to that in terms of what it means for the library?
Well, our policy has always been based on what the county does. Most of my time here, the county has said, we're going to follow what the state does. So that is what our current policy says. Essentially what we're doing, this is an official state holiday now. The legislature has adopted this. So this is really a housekeeping thing.
Right.
We need to remove Lee Jackson Day from our list of holidays because they've officially abolished it as a holiday for the state. And we need to add in Juneteenth and Election Day, which have been added. Just so that our policy is in correspondence to what the actual state holidays are.
Right. And that means that
Last
of
year they
course,
were not officially adopted, so we didn't make the change then.
Okay. The other language in that policy, which talks about what that means in terms of closures, doesn't change. It's just adding 2 holidays and taking away 1.
Yep.
Correct.
So any additional questions for Katie before we have a motion? Then I'll make the motion that we adjust the library policy on the entitled Library Hours and Services to eliminate Lee Jackson Day as a holiday and to add Juneteenth and Election Day. And I take it to mean, Katie, Election Day in November, right? The general
Correct.
election, as opposed to a primary. Okay. So that's the motion. Can I get a second?
I second.
I'll second.
John Fry seconds. He lit up first. A further discussion? All right, I'll take a vote. John, yes or no?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay. Tina?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Dave says yes. It's unanimous. We'll move now to the next item and the last substantive item on our agenda. Consider adding to fines and the fines and fees policy language regarding the availability of paying with a credit card. We don't have that language before us today. Katie actually sent it to me. It's just, and maybe Katie, if you have it there, you could actually read it to us. The county will now allow people to pay library fines and fees for lost items, for example, using a credit card. So all we have to do is put in a paragraph in our fines and fees policy that says people can use a credit card. You want to read the paragraph, Katie? Do you have it there before you?
We've been asking for this for more than 10 years.
Right.
However, when the county agreed to move forward with this, they said, we can't afford the credit card processing charges
Right.
for you to take credit cards for a 50-cent fine or a $1 fine. And we want you to limit the credit card usage to transactions of $10 or more. That request came from the county and it is in here for that reason. I figured $10 is the highest minimum you can have legally. So we start there and we don't have issues and the fees aren't so bad that they, aren't as bad as what the county is thinking. We maybe could at some point reduce it to $5. But if we start at 5, we're never going to be able to go up to 10. So I feel like if you start as the mean parent, you can always be the nice parent later. But it's hard to reverse it. So the credit card machines are here and the bank is anxiously awaiting us plugging these things in. So this is probably happening maybe as early as Monday. But whatever day they actually connect them, effective that day, the Orange County Public Library, in an effort to provide convenience to our customers, has added the ability to pay library charges of $10 or more using a credit or debit card. Because of the high cost of transaction fees, smaller charges will need to be paid via check or cash. A credit/debit card may also be used for copies or printing if the charge is $10 or higher. We do currently take checks for copies if people are going to make a whole lot of them and don't want to futz with $15 worth of quarters in the copy machine. Staff were sort of so-so on the copying part of it, but I think it doesn't happen that often. We're going to have to create a fake customer in our checkout system for printing and copying and put the $10 charge on that customer's fake account and then take the payment for it to work right when we do the reports for Dawn, our financial person, on the credit cards. So it's going to have a few extra steps.
And can I pay a fine using Bitcoin?
Not yet.
Just thought I'd ask.
I
Monopoly.
wouldn't have the
money?
foggiest
Okay.
idea what to do with that. I do know what it is, but
I'm not sure. Okay. Katie has read the language. I've read it. It seems to me straightforward. Can I get a motion to accept that and to add that to the policy on
I have a
fines?
question. I have a question. So
Yeah,
what
John.
happens to the poor bank and their machines if we said no?
well, I guess they would not connect them here and we wouldn't be able
More
to.
rhetorical than anything else. Thank you.
I kind of felt like it was like, when they
It looks
asked
like
me
a
about
fait
this,
accompli anyway to me, so it's okay by me.
Yeah,
but-
it kind of is a fait accompli. It's a housekeeping chore again,
yeah.
but we have to approve all policy changes.
I mean, I'm excited that somebody who owes $165 for a bunch of books that they didn't
I'm not
There's
saying
that.
it's not a
Can-
good
can-
idea.
can
I'm just
finally
saying
use
it
their
got
credit
it
card.
got out ahead of the board, that's for sure. That's all. I'm for it. I say yes. Hey, I make a motion that we accept the
Don
change,
Fry makes a motion. Can I
change
get a
as read by
second?
Katie Hill.
Can I get a
Second.
second?
Second,
Tina, second. The motion before you is to add language to the fines and fees policy so that we can accept credit card payments for charges $10 and above. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question and begin with John, yes or no?
Yes.
Tina,
yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Dave says yes as well, it's unanimous. That completes the business of this meeting. Is there anything else anyone would like to bring up for the good of the order? Anything else, Katie, you want to make note of, or any questions or comments from any board members? Hearing none, I will again welcome Jennifer. You're now initiated, a full-fledged member, and we look forward to seeing you in person in June, at our May meeting in June. And so with that, if there's no objection, we will stand in adjournment at 5:29. I told my wife this will take an hour and a half.
You're all right.
Okay, hearing no objection, we are adjourned at 5:29. Our next meeting is June 17th at 4 p.m. in the meeting room at Main Library, just like the old days.